Hi, my name is Chris. I'm here to be refuting the claim that NCAA restrictions have a negative effect on student athletes, and the supporting claims being that the NCAA restrictions harm the college life of student athletes. The restrictions allow universities to take advantage of student athletes, and then finally the restrictions make student athletes get low compensation. So the first claim states that the athlete's college life is harmed due to restrictions on certain classes and majors, just like the example where he showed the Northwestern quarterback had to choose psychology over the path of the pre-med program. I'm here to state that this claim is insignificant because the overall goal should be how many student athletes are actually going to graduate with a degree. According to NCAA research, Michelle Hossick, the Associate Director of Public Media Relations, explicates how they have found that student athletes are earning diplomas at a record rate. The GSR, or graduation success rate, has increased over the past years, and more student athletes are earning degrees from Division I schools, just like Northwestern University. Data shows that student athletes who entered college in 2007 show 84% graduated within 6 years. This is the highest federal graduation rate ever. In 2013, a projected 18,000 students were thought to graduate when the actual number was close to 20,000. This just shows how there's an overall increase of graduate student athletes. And then a quote from Mark Emmert, the NCAA president, says, "Supporting student athlete success in the classroom is at the heart of our association, and today's announcement shows progress toward that goal that is nothing short of remarkable. We are delighted to see a record percentage of student athletes achieving graduation, the ultimate goal of entering college." In the secondary claim, he addresses that loneliness is a negative factor caused by extraneous physical and mental demand. Personally, I feel that the greater cost to back his original claim are the students who actually show significant mental issues and the result from the physical and mental exertion of the individual. Some of the more serious include depression, anxiety, and even suicidal thoughts. The student athlete's mental health is a bigger issue than the minor issue of personal isolation. Over the past year, students seen for depression have doubled, and those for suicidal ideation has tripled. Many factors can negatively affect a student, and some may be genetic disposition, developmental changes of college transitions, academic stress, and finally financial pressures. A lot of these issues may seem troubling, but there are also ways to avoid or help aid with these issues, like seeking advice or guidance from the campus counseling center. In order for a student athlete to perform at a proficient athletic and academic level, they must keep their mental and emotional lives functioning at a steady level. Next, I would like to dismiss the example that Patricio provided of how his friend had to choose a community college over a Division I university. You expressed how your friend was able to receive a car, room, and even extra cash to spend, but when you go back to the original claim, it states how the NCAA restrictions have a negative effect. Personally, I feel that this situation that has happened is more beneficial than problematic, since the community college is reaching out and assisting your friend rather than spending an overwhelming amount Division I school. Yes, it is unfortunate that he wasn't able to attend the university, but he was able to gain necessary items to help aid his college experience. Following the advocate's issue, I'm here to diminish the claim that states the student athlete is restricted in terms of medical care. In the interest of the health and welfare of collegiate student athletes, a student athlete's health care provider must have clear authority for the athlete's care. Since most of the health care provided by the school is shown as independent, the NCAA Sports Medicine Handbook Guideline 1B concludes, the team's physicians and athletic trainers are able to make decisions with only best interests of the students at their forefront. For Patricio's personal case, the best decision was him to be out for 5 months. By restricting him from playing, this could have prevented a more traumatic injury that could instantly jeopardize his career. He even stated that he had insurance provided by the school. This goes to show how the medical staff helped aid the situation, even though the result was to be out for 5 months. To further back my counterclaim, there are also programs such as Catastrophic Injury Insurance Program and the Group Basic Medical Program to help aid with these problems that he might come in contact with. The principles according to these consensus statement for sports medicine management include: the clinical responsibilities of an athletic trainer should always be performed in a manner that is consistent with the written or verbal instructions of a physical or standing orders and clinical management protocols that have been approved by a program's designated medical director. Decisions that affect the current or future health status of a student athlete who has an injury or illness should be only made by a properly credentialed health professional. And finally, I'd like to dismiss the final claim that student athletes get low compensation. As stated from the previous claim, your friend was given the chance to accept the car with extra money. The compensation for a student athlete may not always be in a monetary value, but in a way to aid the overall experience of the player. The items that your friend received in some cases help compensate for the cost that they could have been paying at the Division I university. This is where I believe financial grants and scholarships come into play, where it helps for debts the individual may see in the long run. This is more of the bigger issue rather than the low compensation that the athletes seem to get. I would like to conclude that the NCAA actually has a more positive impact on student athletes for multiple reasons. The NCAA programs and professionals offer the help and aid for physical problems like injuries and the mental problems like depression. Grants and scholarships help with the students' athletes' financial stresses and help reduce future debts. As you can see from the examples above, the NCAA puts the student athletes first when it comes to medical, financial, or even personal problems.
Well, all the structural stuff is clear at the beginning. You signpost on the first point. I thought that the information that you had on the first point is an interesting counterpoint. In other words, the goal here is to get the degree, and in fact, according to your statistics, the rate at which degrees are being granted is higher. You've got specific information about Northwestern University, which is the one school that was used as an example in the case. I thought that that was pretty effective. The quote from the president of the NCAA talking about the goal is classroom success in the long run. I think that's all pretty successful. I do think you need to argue that the one example that is being presented there is the only proof that's offered on that particular point. The likelihood that somebody could get other kinds of degrees, I think you do a good job talking about that. Their claim is maybe not as well supported as it could be, but I'm not sure everything about your argument contradicts the claim as they've presented it. It mitigates it to a substantial degree. I did like that. On the issue of loneliness, to me, you basically are kind of arguing that there are other issues that are more important, and I'm not sure that that's the right way to diminish this argument. In fact, I would suggest that there's probably a relationship between depression, anxiety, and loneliness, as opposed to them being competing elements. They are probably complementary elements that have at their root some of the same things. The better argument that I think you have is that there is advice and assistance available at the colleges, and that I think you needed to develop a little bit more. That there is that there are programs that are accessible to the student athletes, that there are programs available to all students that address these kinds of issues and provide some sort of assistance, instead of just saying, well, loneliness isn't nearly as important as these other two things. If I was the advocate, I'd come back and say, okay, well, those things are important too, but that doesn't compete with the issue. That just simply puts it into a context. The example of the friend that you're talking about, I'm still not quite clear. I know that the school isn't providing that student with a car, and they're still representing the school in the NCAA, because that would be a violation of those rules. But it could be, for instance, that because they go to a school where their fees are lower, they can use part of their grant to purchase a car. Maybe that's what's going on there. I'm still not sure why that matters to the bigger argument about the NCAA is exploiting people and doing something that's harmful to them. You know, I think that should be the analysis that's going on at that particular point. By the way, I just wanted to note that your delivery is a little bit dry. It's kind of like my reading right now. I'm so focused on what I'm talking about here that I don't even look up and talk to you. Sorry about that. That's kind of rude of me. But, you know, I got to remember everything that I'm talking about, and this is the first time through. You had time to practice. I think you needed to do a little bit more of that kind of practice. All right, I got to stop because I want to make